So this is arguably one of the biggest troubles that I've dealt with, where I would ask myself this question of, well, look, why is it that even after the work I put in, why is it that I still feel unsatisfied? And I think a lot of the time this is because or at least for me at least, I keep setting that goalpost higher and higher. Now, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but I think sometimes or at least for me, I can push it a bit too far. Or I can push it really out of reach. Or, for example, when I'm, working or something, I can always think, right, well, that was nothing. Right? I can really just it's almost like sometimes that I will really take the work I did and I'll just say, yeah, that was rubbish. That was like all the way down here, even when in reality it was actually fairly good. And so I think it would constantly leave me this in the state of being unsatisfied. Now, I will say this, I don't think being unsatisfied is bad. Naturally, I would, recommend for a lot of guys to always be in a state of trying to consider, well, how could I improve? How could I, achieve this outcome better? How could I make, improve the quality of this, right? I'd always, you know, encourage that in whatever it is you're doing, whether it's your health, your sort of finances, your relationships, whatever it is. I think the biggest issue is that when you can never recognize the work you put in, the time you put in, right, and never see the value in that. And I think for me, I found that when I would constantly push myself down and just, say, or just get annoyed that, the work that I'm doing just, never seemed good enough in my eyes, then it became very miserable. The process became very miserable. And I don't think social media has helped with this. Don't get me wrong. I think there's people that I've watched on social media that have helped, right? Like that have helped with, for example, my work or, the way I approach it and the way I think about things. But I think as well as like often when you hear of people that, are doing these, sort of, 12-hour workday stuff, you listen to that and obviously, they seem to be successful and, a lot of these people are. You then look at yourself and you think, oh, well, I only worked for, 4 or 5 hours consistently. So, it's rubbish, right? Or it was just not good enough. And this is where I think it gets a little tricky because if you had very efficient work and you effectively achieved quite a bit in the time you put in, is that still bad? And so I think this is where the whole feeling of being unfulfilled comes in. Now, again, if you're feeling unfulfilled and you full well know you're not putting in any level of work, then that's an obvious one, right? And I think feeling unfulfilled or feeling a bit regretful, I don't think that's a bad feeling. I think that's something to recognize and then take action on. I think the issue becomes where you keep noticing it, but you just choose to ignore it. You choose to hide away from it. So that's sort of where I stand with that. And I think really what's helped me at least is going, right, well, it's trying to recognize the value of what I'm doing. If I am doing two deep work sessions and maybe a lighter work session in the day and perhaps going to the gym as well, it's trying to recognize, well, that's actually pretty good, right? Sure, if I have a few feelings of, oh, well, you know what, I could have maybe spent a bit more time on this, that's okay, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't have that, right? And I think us as guides, we should always consider what we could have done to improve. What I'm saying is I think the issue that a lot of guys, if we just put so much pressure on ourselves where we can almost so easily just say, look, whatever I did, over the last week, it was nothing, right? And so this is where I think that issue of that unfulfillment is. Because I think if you can build momentum, you can build consistency, in some way level or in some way, shape or form, and you can, for example, recognize perhaps a few wins that you can be proud of in the day. For me, it could be, I went to the gym, I did one deep work session, and something else or whatever. If I can at least just mentally go through what I was at least somewhat proud of today, that for me has helped with momentum. That has helped with being able to stay consistent. Because although I think negativity can be a good driver, if it's all negativity and there's no almost trying to pat yourself on the back for anything, then I think that becomes a bit difficult. But let me know your thoughts on this. Keep working hard. I'll chat soon.